Many years had carved deeper scars into Hollis Miller than his 36 birthdays ever could. Being a widower weighed on him like a chain. No children to carry his name, no wife to share his nights. The cabin was his only company, its logs darkened by storms and time. He sat by the fire each evening. The chair across from him stayed as empty as the other half of his bed. Folks in town always talked about his size before his heart. They called him the Giant Miller, hands like hammers, strength like an ox. But his truth lived in his stillness, not his strength. He didn't go to the tavern. He didn't try to laugh with the neighbors. He spoke little. His world was small. That night, the air was thick with snow and trees when a sound struck the cabin door. Not wind, not branches. A knock, urgent, rough, shaking. Hollis froze, a log in his arms, instincts sharpening in the silence. Even in winter, no one knocked after dark. He set the wood down and opened the door cautiously. She stood there, small as a bird, delicate, a girl no older than 7. Her hair damp with snow, twisted, her cheeks blotched red from cold. She wore only boots and a thin torn dress. Her toes showed through worn leather. Her wide eyes weren't from the cold, but terror, deep and rooted. She looked up at him. He was a giant silhouette in the doorway, and spoke softly, like dying smoke from an old fire. "My mama. They beat her. She's hurt bad." The words echoed through the cabin's quiet, rattling places Hollis kept buried. He didn't move. The girl's lips trembled, but no tears came. She had cried them all already. No child should know how to stand with such desperate dignity. Like if she stayed still enough, the world might not fall apart. "Who's your mother, child?" His voice rumbled like thunder beneath the earth. She swallowed. "Tiny, dirty, thin, Ellen Mary. Ellen Mary Carter." They left her by the shack on Miller's Creek. "She can't get up. Please, she needs help." Carter. Mary Ellen. The name tugged at him like a half-forgotten song. He'd seen her in town, a soft-featured woman with tired eyes. Always sat around her husband. Elias Carter. Broad shoulders. Fast with the bottle. Faster with fists. Hollis once saw him raise a hand to her in the store. And like most men, Hollis looked away, not because he didn't care, but because in the West, a man's house was his own, even if it was hell. But hearing her name from her child now cut deeper than any wind. He lowered himself to the porch so his height wouldn't frighten the girl. "What's your name, little one?" "Laura May," she whispered. Her eyes shimmered without crying. He saw bruises on her arms, how she held her torn sleeve for protection. A heat rose in him. Not wild rage, something deeper. A quiet fire beneath the roots. "Get inside," he said gently. Laura hesitated. Could she trust someone so big? But the wind nearly knocked her over, so she stepped into the warmth. Hollis pulled on his coat and strode into the night. Miller's Creek sat a mile away. His boots cut straight lines through the snow. The cold bit at his face, but he never slowed. Cottonwoods rattled like bones. He carried no lantern. Only memory and moonlight guided him. The shack appeared, a sagging pile of wood and broken shingles. No smoke from the chimney. He pushed the door open. The smell of wet straw and whiskey hit him. Mary Ellen lay on dirty rags in the corner. Even in the dark, her wounds showed. Her cheeks swollen and purple, one eye nearly shut, lips split by a large hand. Rope burns on her wrists. Bruises everywhere. Yet when her eyes met his, she held pride. She would rather die on the floor than beg. "You shouldn't have come," she rasped. "They'll destroy you. They'll say things." He knelt, the floor creaking beneath him, looking into her battered face. "Let them." He lifted her with impossible gentleness. She didn't fight, maybe from pain, maybe from the strange safety in his arms. He wrapped his coat around her small frame as she rested her head against his chest. The storm's howl softened. Laura waited at the cabin door, hands pressed together, eyes wide with hope. When she saw her mother in Hollis's arms, her face lit with relief, so powerful it aged and renewed her all at once. He laid Mary Ellen on his bed, the only bed. She murmured that she could not take his place. He calmed her with a soft voice. Laura curled beside her mother, trembling. Hollis stirred the fire, grabbing water and cloth. He cleaned Mary Ellen's wounds, firm but careful. She flinched, never screamed. His silence spoke more than words. Snow fell harder outside, blanketing the land. But inside, warmth grew. Laura's breathing slowed in sleep. Mary Ellen's eyes flickered toward Hollis by the fire, massive shoulders hunched, face lit by flame and loneliness. She wanted to thank him, but shame silenced her. Still, for the first time in years, she slept in peace. Across town, Elias Carter slurred her name in the tavern, spilling whiskey. Miller stole my wife. Put her in his bed. I'll take her back. I'll make him bleed. Men nodded, hungry for drama. For a giant to fall. At the cabin, Hollis stood by the fire, watching Mary Ellen rest. Watching Laura, small and safe. For the first time in years, he felt something. Not desire, but belonging. Responsibility. Protection. He looked out the window at the dark prairie. Somewhere out there, Elias was breathing rage. Hollis's jaw tightened. The moment he lifted Mary Ellen off that floor, his life had changed. He would not let her fall again. The cabin was no longer just shelter. It was a fortress of whispers, where his silence would defy another man's fury. The town murmured like restless wind. News of Mary Ellen staying in the cabin of the giant Miller spread faster than wildfire on dry grass. Women whispered behind gloved hands as they filled water buckets. Men chuckled with cruel amusement outside the general store. But Hollis did not flinch. He moved through town only when needed, buying flour, salt, medicine for bruises. Every time he stepped onto the boardwalk, conversations died. Eyes followed him. He didn't look back. His silence was a shield and a warning. Mary Ellen grew stronger each day. The bruises faded from deep purple to yellow. Her swollen eye opened completely, and she could lift her arms without trembling. But her pain was more than skin. She woke in the night shaking, breath ragged, clutching the blanket as if expecting fists. Hollis would sit by the fire, pretending not to notice for her sake, but his hands curled into fists of his own. Not from frustration, but from helpless fury that anyone had ever made her feel that way. He would quietly add another log to the fire so she could see the room, so shadows wouldn't look like threats. Laura thrived the fastest. She followed Hollis outside when he did chores, skipping through snow like it was cotton. She tried to help carry wood, but the logs were bigger than her arms. He chuckled softly, just once, and saw her eyes light up like sunrise. That laugh was a gift. He began carving small things from scrap wood, a horse, a bird, a tiny cabin. She would run her fingers over the rough shapes and smile in a way that melted the cold that had lived inside him for years. Mary Ellen saw it too. Sometimes she stood in the doorway of the cabin, watching Hollis lift fence posts with ease, listening to Laura's laughter drift through the frosty air. She held her apron between her fingers, unsure what she felt. Gratitude? Shame? Hope? It had been so long since a man's presence meant safety. She didn't know how to breathe around it. One evening, as the sun sank into the hills and painted the snow gold, Mary Ellen stood at the table stirring soup. Hollis came in from the cold, boots thudding on the floorboards. He hung his coat near the door. She glanced up at him, nervous. For the first time, he hesitated to move past her, as if she were someone he didn't want to disturb. "You're feeling better," he said quietly. She nodded. "Because of you." He didn't answer right away. He looked at the fire, then at her hands, steady now, not shaking. "I only gave a place to rest. You did the healing." The words sank into her like warmth. No man had ever given her credit for anything. She wanted to tell him how much he had done, how his silence made her feel seen more than anyone's words ever had. But her throat tightened. She simply said, "Thank you." He gave one small nod, then sat at the table. Laura brought him the wooden bird he carved. He held it carefully, like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever made. Mary Ellen watched his massive hands gently trace the tiny wings. Strength and softness living in one man. It amazed her. Snow came heavy that night. The wind moaned through the trees like spirits lost in the dark. The cabin flickered with firelight, shadows dancing on the walls. Hollis sat sharpening a small knife while Mary Ellen hemmed one of his shirts. Laura lay on the rug by the fire, humming softly as she played with her wooden horse. The knock shattered the calm, but it wasn't frantic like the first time. It was slow, deliberate, claiming. Hollis stood before the second knock came. Mary Ellen froze, needle slipping from her hand. Her breath hitched. She knew that knock. Hollis opened the door only a crack. Elias Carter stood on the porch, snow clinging to his boots, eyes bloodshot with liquor and pride. "I've come for my wife," he slurred, voice thick. "She don't belong here." Hollis didn't move. Behind him, Laura sat up like a frightened rabbit. Mary Ellen's heart pounded so loud she felt the floor sway. Elias leaned forward, sneering, spittle freezing on his beard. "You think you can keep what's mine?" His voice rose, ugly. "I'll drag her out myself." Hollis stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind him. His massive form blocked the wind. Even in the dark, Elias looked small in his shadow. "She ain't yours," Hollis said, voice calm but heavy as iron. "You broke that when you left her to die." Elias laughed poison. "You got no proof. Folks will believe me before they believe a silent beast like you." Hollis's jaw clenched. "Leave," he said, "before this becomes something else." Elias squinted, swaying slightly. "You think you're better than me? You think she wants you?" He spat on the ground. "She'll crawl back. They always do." Hollis didn't respond with fists. He responded with silence. One long, thunderous look that made Elias step back without meaning to. "I'll be back," Elias snarled. "And next time, I ain't knocking." He turned and stumbled into the dark, boots crunching through the snow. Hollis stood there a long moment, breathing slow. When he went back inside, Mary Ellen was shaking. He slowly removed his coat and hung it up, saying nothing. Mary Ellen whispered, "He won't stop." Hollis looked at her with eyes she had never seen before, soft with understanding, hard with promise. "Neither will I." She pressed her lips together, tears threatening. Not from fear, but from something so new it hurt. Someone finally stood between her and the storm. Days passed. Tension settled over the cabin like frost. Hollis reinforced the door hinges, sharpened tools, checked his rifle more often. Not out of panic, but preparation. Mary Ellen noticed. She worried he'd kill Elias and be hanged. She worried Elias would kill him and leave them alone in the world. She couldn't lose either point. One morning, Hollis saddled his horse to ride into town. Supplies were low. He hesitated at the door. "You'll be safe here," he said. "I'll be quick." Mary Ellen nodded. But when he reached the edge of the yard, he looked back. Laura stood in the doorway holding the wooden bird, waving. Mary Ellen stood behind her, shawl wrapped over her shoulders. The winter sun lit them softly, fragile as glass. Something in him shifted. His life was no longer just his. He lifted a hand in silent promise, then rode on. Town buzzed like a hornet nest. Gossip thickened the air. Men smirked as he passed, whispering. A few wives pitied him. But worst of all, Elias sat on the tavern porch, a bottle in hand and hatred bleeding from his eyes. "You got my wife playing house?" Elias taunted loudly. "Sleeping in your bed like a bought whore?" The word struck Hollis like a brand. The boards creaked under his boots as he approached. The crowd hushed. Hollis loomed over Elias, who smirked despite the trembling in his hand. "Say that again," Hollis said, voice low as the grave. Elias stood, trying to appear taller. Hollis moved faster than anyone expected. He grabbed Elias by the collar and slammed him into the porch post. The wood shuddered. Elias gasped, feet dangling off the ground. "You ever speak her name again with disrespect," Hollis growled. "You won't speak at all." The world went silent. Elias's face turned red. Hollis let him drop. Elias stumbled back, choking on spit and pride. He glared up, shaking with fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "I'll take everything from you." He staggered away into the street. Men exhaled, women stared from windows. Hollis picked up the bag of flour he had dropped and left without another word. All the way home, the wind howled. Hollis knew this wasn't over. Elias was planning something. But when he returned to the cabin and saw Laura sleeping by the fire, Mary Ellen sewing quietly in his chair, the storm outside felt distant. He looked at them, and in that moment, he understood. Some things were worth every fight. That night, Mary Ellen stood by the window, watching snow swirl in the dark. Hollis sat by the fire, mending a leather strap. Silence stretched, not uncomfortable, full of unspoken thoughts. She turned. "Why are you doing this for us?" She asked softly. "You owe me nothing." Hollis looked into the fire, thinking. Then he looked at her, with a sadness she'd never seen in his eyes. "Maybe I owed someone a long time ago," he said. "And I failed them." Her breath caught. She realized then, he wasn't just protecting them. He was healing something inside himself. She stepped closer, heart pounding. "You haven't failed us," she whispered. His eyes lifted to hers, steady, intense, gentle. For a long moment, the world outside disappeared. In the glow of the fire, something warm and terrifying bloomed between them, a bond not of pity, but of understanding. And deep in the frozen night, miles away, Elias Carter gathered men, guns, and hatred, ready to reclaim what he believed was his. The storm was coming, and this time it would not knock. Evening settled over the ranch with a gold and purple sky stretching across the horizon, the land glowing like a memory. The world around them held its breath, quiet, waiting, almost sacred. Amelia sat on the porch steps, watching Samuel saddle 2 horses. Sara leaned sleepily against her side, holding her rag doll, her small fingers curled into Amelia's dress as if afraid she might disappear again. For the first time in years, Amelia felt warmth in her chest. She had worked alongside Samuel all afternoon, feeding the animals, mending fences, gathering eggs. The tasks were simple, repetitive, but each one stitched her deeper into the rhythm of life here. Into belonging, into safety, into family. Samuel tied the last strap and glanced at her from across the yard. The sunset cast amber light over his features, softening the rugged lines of his face. He looked tired, but peaceful. Amelia suddenly realized how much he had been carrying, running this ranch alone, raising a child, pretending the past no longer hurt. "Amelia," he called gently. "Come here a moment." She stood, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, heart picking up speed for no reason she could explain. As she approached, she noticed something in his eyes. Not pity, not even gratitude, but a warm openness. "Trust. I wanted to thank you," he said. "For today, I haven't seen Sara this happy in a long time." Amelia's throat tightened. "She's easy to love." Samuel nodded, eyes softening. "So are you." The words struck her harder than a bullet. She blinked, breath catching, unsure how to answer. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. Samuel seemed to notice her hesitation. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know you've been through hell. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But I want you to know, this place could be your home. If you choose it." Home. She had forgotten what that word meant. "Why? Why would you offer that to me?" Her voice broke. "You barely know me. Because I've watched the way you protect Sara, the way you work, the way you carry your pain, but don't let it turn you cruel. I know good when I see it." Her eyes stung. The wind swept softly through the grass, almost as if holding the moment still. "I don't know if I deserve this," she whispered. Samuel stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Everyone deserves a chance at peace." Their eyes locked. The world fell silent. For 1 breath, 2.3, then a gunshot cracked the air like thunder. Amelia jerked around. Samuel instantly pushed Sara behind a barrel and stepped in front of them, hand on his holster. Shouting drifted from the road near the main gate. Men's voices, rough and angry. Multiple horses. Heavy footsteps. The unmistakable sound of boots hitting dirt, but Samuel's jaw clenched. "Stay here." Amelia grabbed his arm before she even realized she moved. "No. Let me help." His eyes flickered with concern. "This could be dangerous. I've lived through worse." Samuel stared a second longer, then nodded. "Stay close to me." They approached the front gate together. The ranch hands were already gathering, weapons in hand. The evening sky had darkened to a bruised violet, shadows stretching long across the ground. Dust swirled low as 8 riders dismounted, rough men in dirty coats, guns glinting in the fading light. One man stood ahead of the rest, his presence sharp as a knife. Clayton Ward. Amelia's blood ran cold. She knew that face. Those dead eyes. He had worked with the men who locked her in the sack. He had laughed when she begged. He had tossed her hair like she was a worthless pet. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear alone, from rage. Samuel stepped forward calmly. "State your business." Clayton smirked. "Evenin', McAllister. Heard you took in some stray. Thought we'd relieve you of the burden." Samuel didn't move. "Leave." Clayton shrugged. "She's stolen property. Belongs to Hollister's crowd. And Hollister don't take kindly to folks stealing from him." "She's a free woman," Samuel said. "And this is my land. You set foot past that gate, you won't walk out." Clayton's smirk grew. 8 against 1. "You sure you want to die over some used-up girl?" Amelia's stomach twisted, but Samuel didn't flinch. One man with a spine is worth 100 without. Clayton laughed. "Last warning, McAllister. Hand her over." "No." Silence. Then Clayton's eyes hardened. Get her. Before anyone could blink, two of his men drew their guns. Amelia didn't think. She moved. She shoved Samuel aside just as the first shot rang out. Bullets sparked off the metal gate. Ranch hands fired back. The air exploded with gunfire, horses rearing, shouting filling the dusk. Samuel grabbed Amelia's wrist. "Get back. I can fight," she yelled. Sara screamed from behind the porch. Amelia spun in time to see one of Clayton's men break off and run toward the house, towards Sara. "No." Amelia sprinted, lungs burning. The man reached for Sara. Amelia tackled him to the ground, grabbing the nearest rock. She swung with everything she had. Once, twice, again. The man collapsed, unconscious. Sara clung to Amelia, sobbing. "Don't leave me." "I won't," Amelia gasped. "Never." Gunfire still roared across the yard. Samuel took cover behind the well, returning fire. The ranch hands were holding. Barely, but Clayton's men were vicious, firing wildly. Samuel ducked as a bullet grazed his arm. He winced, eyes narrowing dangerously. "Amelia, get inside." She shook her head, eyes blazing. "I'm not running." Another shot clipped the porch post near Sara's head. Amelia shielded the child with her body. Panic surged through her veins, tightening her chest. If they lost, no, not again. Not this time. Amelia rose, fury burning away her fear. She spotted Clayton near the gate, barking orders. The monster from her nightmares, he saw her. His grin was feral. "There you are." He raised his gun at her. A memory flashed. Dark sack. No air. His laughter. Amelia met his gaze and stepped forward. "Amelia," Samuel shouted. "Don't." But she kept walking. Clayton sneered. "Come quietly, girl. I'll make it fast, like you did the sack," she said, voice steady as steel. His eyes flickered. "You remember," he said flatly. "I remember everything." Clayton tilted his head, amused. "Funny. I don't remember you having this much fight. That's because you never let me stand." She raised her chin. "I'm standing now." Clayton leveled his gun. Samuel fired first. The bullet slammed into Clayton's arm. He cursed, staggering back. The distraction broke the enemy formation. Ranch hands surged forward. One by one, Clayton's men fell or fled. The air rang with final gunshots, then silence. And when the dust settled, Clayton was on his knees, clutching his bleeding arm, glaring pure hatred at Samuel and Amelia standing side by side. "This ain't over," he hissed. "Hollister will burn this place to the ground." Samuel aimed his revolver at Clayton's head, eyes cold. "Let him try." Clayton spat blood. Amelia stepped forward. For a moment, they were inches apart. Her voice was soft, but lethal. "The difference now?" she whispered. "I'm not alone." Clayton's eyes widened. Samuel cocked the hammer, and the night held its breath. Just before everything changed forever. The world seemed to pause around them, the air thick with gunpowder, sweat, and the heavy silence after violence. Clayton knelt in the dirt, blood dripping from his arm, hatred twisted into every line of his face. Samuel stood poised with his revolver aimed at the man's forehead, finger tight on the trigger. Amelia stood just behind him, breathing hard, hair wild, eyes burning with a fire that hadn't existed in her before this night. The ranch hands stood scattered around the yard, weapons drawn, watching with tense expectation. Those who had fled were long gone. Only Clayton remained. Samuel's voice was low, steady, lethal. "Give me one reason not to end this." Clayton spat, blood mixing with dirt. "Because I ain't the worst of them. Hollister won't stop. He don't quit. He'll send 20 more men. He'll burn your barns, hang your men, and take your pretty new pet for himself." Amelia stiffened. Samuel's jaw flexed, his eyes dark. "Then I'll be ready." Clayton smirked, cruel and confident even while bleeding. "You can't protect everyone, McAllister. Not forever. Sooner or later, you'll lose. Everyone does." Something in Amelia shifted. She stepped forward, her boots silent in the dirt. She stood beside Samuel, eyes fixed on Clayton. "You're wrong," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "People only lose when they fight alone." Clayton sneered, looking her up and down. "Look at you. Little girl thinks she's strong now. You forget I know what you really are." Amelia leaned forward, voice trembling, but with power, not fear. "No. You thought you knew. You thought breaking someone made them weak." She shook her head. "But surviving made me unstoppable." Clayton scoffed. You don't have the guts to kill me. Silence. Wind swept through the yard. A lantern flickered. Amelia reached down and picked up the revolver from the man she'd knocked out earlier. The metal felt heavy, but righteous, in her hand. She cocked it, pointed it at Clayton's chest. Everyone froze, even Samuel. Clayton blinked, surprise flickering across his face. For the first time, he looked unsure. You want to know the real difference between us? Amelia said, voice low. You hurt people to feel powerful. I protect them because I know what it's like to be unprotected. Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. But I will never let you touch another soul again. Clayton narrowed his eyes, lips parting to speak. Amelia pulled the trigger. The blast echoed across the open land like thunder. Clayton's body jerked, then crumpled to the ground, eyes wide in shock as life drained from them. Dust rose around him, then settled in final silence. N01 moved. N01 spoke. The night exhaled. For a moment, Amelia just stood there, gun still raised, chest heaving. The weight of everything, pain, fear, rage, survival, poured out of her in a slow, trembling breath. Samuel reached out and gently lowered her arm. His voice was soft. It's over. Her eyes glistened. Is it? He glanced at Clayton's body, then back to her. For him. Yes. He paused. For you. It's just beginning. Her knees suddenly weakened, all the strength draining from her now that the danger had passed. Samuel caught her before she fell, strong arms steadying her. She clung to him, overwhelmed. I was so scared, she whispered. I know, he murmured. But you stood anyway. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not of fear this time, but release. Samuel brushed one away with his thumb, his touch gentle. I'm proud of you. Her breath caught. She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said those words to her. Then a small voice broke the silence. Mama? Amelia turned. Sara stood on the porch steps, eyes wide, clutching her doll. She looked afraid. And hopeful, Mama. She repeated, softer this time. Amelia's heart stopped. Samuel looked at Sara, then at Amelia. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. This choice was hers. Tears blurred Amelia's vision. She took a shaky step forward. Then another. Sara ran to her, arms wide. Amelia dropped to her knees and caught the child, holding her tightly against her chest. I'm here, Amelia whispered. I'm here, baby, and I'm not going anywhere. Sara buried her face in Amelia's shoulder. You saved me. Amelia closed her eyes and held her tighter. You saved me first. Samuel approached slowly, his shadow falling over them in the moonlight. He knelt beside them, resting a hand carefully on Amelia's back. He hesitated, then spoke softly. This ranch, this family, it's yours too, if you'll have it. Amelia lifted her head, eyes searching his. You're sure? He nodded. I lost my wife once. I thought I'd never feel anything again. But somehow, you brought life back here. You brought hope back to Sara. To me. He swallowed. I don't want to let that go. Her breath trembled. And if the past comes back, then we face it together, he said firmly. No more standing alone. The words hit her deeper than any bullet ever could. He meant them. Every single one. Slowly. Amelia let the fear go. I choose this, she whispered. I choose you. Both of you. Samuel's eyes softened. With relief, emotion, something almost like joy. He gently cupped her face, and under the first stars of the night, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was not wild or desperate. It was gentle, careful, full of unspoken promises. Sara giggled, covering her eyes with her doll. You. Amelia and Samuel laughed softly against each other's lips, then rested their foreheads together as the world around them settled into peace. Behind them, the ranch hands began cleaning up, murmuring among themselves. Some smiled, some nodded. All of them knew something powerful had shifted tonight. Not just a battle won. A family formed. Samuel stood and helped Amelia to her feet, keeping her hand in his. Come on, he said quietly. Let's go inside. You two need rest. Amelia smiled softly. We have a home to rest in now. They walked back toward the warm glow of the house, hand in hand. Sara skipping beside them, moonlight guiding their steps. But just before reaching the door, Amelia paused and looked back at the open land, the stars stretching endlessly above for the first time in her life. The future didn't scare her because she finally understood strength wasn't surviving alone. Strength was loving without fear, trusting without walls, standing. Together, she stepped inside. The door closed gently behind them, and the night carried away the last echoes of the past, while the promise of tomorrow waited quietly on the horizon. The Yendi.